Hello, my name is James Pywell and this is the 92 podcast. I'm on a quest to speak to one fan from each of the 92 football teams that make up the Premier League, the Championship, League One and League Two. Each episode I'll shine a spotlight on a different club, talking to their fans, playing silly games and quizzes and learning what it's like to be a supporter of their team. In this episode we take a look at Leyton Orient.
For me, the love of Orient is not because they play attractive football or they sign the greatest stars, it's the people. And the people, and you feel part of it. You feel that your voice is heard. We've all done it as well. You've scored a goal. You've turned to a complete stranger and hugged them, and jumped all over them. If it was a 90th minute winner, actually the news broke on that Saturday, and I was sitting at home and I said to my better half, I said, look, I want to go down the club. I've got this natural urge to want to just go down the club. I want to be with other Orient people.
Now, I don't know anything about them, except they're from East London and they're in League Two, which is why Julian joins me on this episode. He's from the Leyton Orient podcast, The Lowdown. Hello, Julian. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, mate. How you doing? Yeah, thank you. And I'm really disappointed you know nothing about us.
No, which is why I've got you on, though, so that you can kind of enlighten me about everything Leyton Orient, because I literally know nothing other than, like I said, you're in League Two and you're from East London.
Yeah, cool. So let's give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the East End. Leyton Orient are one of the founding members of football in the UK. We have got a historical background. For the first time in our history, probably about 3 years ago, unfortunately, we entered into the National League. So for that's the first time in that great historical time. But then we're seeing that across a lot of football clubs now. The teams that have been in the highest of the highs are now, and some of them on the lowest of the lows. But as a club, we're very much a community team. And what that means is that I think everyone buys into the ethos of what Leyton Orient stands for. Our support and our following, home and away, is pretty good for League Two. We don't have huge crowds like some of the teams in the Championship. Because if you look at where we're based, you mentioned East London, but you turn left outside our West Stand and you can see West Ham over at the Olympic Park. If you turn right and a couple of trips and flows, you fall into our friends at Spurs, who are very, very good neighbours, by the way. Not so good the left-hand side, but then if you go around the corner from there, you have Arsenal. So if you look at the catchment area, we are very, very much sort of under pressure from Premiership clubs, and young followers want to see good football, good investment, and guess what you see? We have that mixed message. But one thing I would say, what we've probably seen over the last 3 years is a real uptake in young fans coming to watch Orient. Whether their Orient's become their second club or it's actually their first club, we are really seeing a big uptake of younger fans joining us. And that's good, because all those old fogies who have been around the block a few times, and we want to see that continue on. And when you go away, you're seeing a lot more younger fans. So that's a really good thing for us. So for us, that's great. If you look at our history, we've had some real highs and some lows. You think also, you look at some of the players that have been through us over years. I mean, one sort of highlight is Laurie Cunningham, one of the first black footballers who played for England, who went off and joined West Brom and Real Madrid and sadly passed away in a car accident. But what a play, what a talent that started his career at Leyton Orient. But then we've done that over a number of players, and now playing in the Premiership or in and around the Championship, who have come through our academy system and then gone on and to better things. So what else can we say? Yeah, we're an East End club, very, very community driven. Our football at times over the years has been a bit desperate, but I think in recent climes under Justin Edinburgh, did some great things in the National League, and I'm really pleased to see that Ross Edwardson, who's again was his number two, but more importantly, he's a number one in his own right now. He's starting to sort of move us on and move us forward. We're playing some good, attractive football, and I think they say we're on the up, or there's rising in the east, as I think our football club uses some of their marketing.
So let's delve a little bit deeper then into you personally as a fan. How long have you been a fan of the club? Is it all your life?
Yes, my little story is a bit weird. So I started my footballing life as a very young. So my brother and sister are a lot older than me. So my brother's 10 years older than me. My sister's 14 years older than me. So I was the baby of the family. My mum and dad both worked East End parents. And my mum worked for the local authority. My dad worked for British Gas. My dad had to work Saturdays, so he couldn't take me in, although my dad was not a big sports fan. So from a very early age, and I mean sort of 9, 10, I was going to watch football. Football was something I really enjoyed watching. So I would go over to Tottenham with one of my mates from school. And as we went over there on our own, so you imagine now sending a 9 or 10-year-old halfway across London on public transport match days. My mother probably and my father ended up in care because it wasn't the thing to do now. But then the world was a different place. So I was going over to Spurs to 9 and 10, and sadly, one day I was walking onto Tottenham High Street. I saw a man get thrown through a window of a pub. Not in, out. It was someone thrown out the window. And that scared the life out of me as a young man. So I went back and naturally told my mum the story of what I've seen after watching Spurs play where they were. And she wasn't quite happy at that. So I was about 11 then. And then I sort of fell out of love with football watching it. I started playing a decent level of rugby on a Saturday, and I got to about 15, 16, and some of my mates were saying, I'm going over Leyton Orient. And like you said, who are Leyton Orient? They're in East London. That's all I knew, And so I started to go over there and literally got the bug within 2 or 3 weeks. I think the bug was it was not as packed as when you go to a Premiership or a Division 1 club when Spurs were in there. It was, for me, it was just a different feel. You felt that you were a part of it. And when I sort of, after going over Orient, I was speaking to my mother, and what pleases me now, so if I look at my 2 boys who are in the 21 and 24, they're 5th generation Orient fans, which at the time I didn't know, because my mum had been over Orient as a child. Yeah. Her dad was an Orient fan, and his father was an Orient fan. Again, unbeknown to me. And as a thing, I found out over as we go over many years. I've got cousins who go over there. I come from an Irish family, so they didn't have much TV, so there was a lot of them. So everyone's got a son or daughter. So I have 2 or 3 cousins go over there fairly frequently. I've got a cousin who I didn't really know until the last 10 years that well, because he's a lot older than me, sits in the same row as me, and but down the other end. So it's quite a family thing, and for me, the love of Orient is not because they play attractive football or they sign the greatest stars. It's the people, and you feel part of it. You feel that your voice is heard. You feel that actually, strangely, if you're not there on a Saturday or a Tuesday, that has affects the players because they expect you to be there, look out for you, and although they don't, but in your own mind, you're bought into it. It's a part of your life. It's not just I'm going to go and watch football today. It is a part of the fact. It becomes everything. It consumes you. Everything you think about outside your own family, Leyton Orient becomes that. And that's such a lovely thing if your life allows that, isn't it? It's just great to be a part of something and part of something very special.
And you obviously feel more of a connection with Leyton Orient, knowing that there's potentially less fans there, but compared to like the likes of Tottenham, who you're in the midst of, obviously when you get into stadiums, you're in the midst of like tens of thousands of fans rather than just a couple of thousand, isn't it?
Yeah, agree. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I watch Premiership football on the TV. I think it's fantastic quality. We're producing some great talent in the UK, and also we're seeing some fantastic talent from abroad playing in the Premier League. But I think for me is that one of the things that my friends out who are not Orient fans sort of like always think, how do you get that? So we have the opportunity to go and talk to our owners. We have the opportunity to talk to the manager. The manager's very open and honest. We have interviewed him on the Lowdown podcast, which we're blessed to do that. But from that, he actually cares. And one thing I will share, and this is it's a personal thing, but I want you to sort of describe the type of club they are. Back end of last year, in October, November time, my youngest is at university. Sadly, was contracted the coronavirus and was hospitalised with it. And I was speaking to Ross, our manager, in passing, just to let him know. I said, Ross, just to let you know, my son's not well and blah, blah, blah. And we were playing Walsall away. We got beat, so he didn't have to do it. He had his post-match interview. We were pretty poor. He had to stand up and be counted there. And he ended the interview with "Wish you my son all the best," And no manager needs to do that. It doesn't matter. No. Even Ross didn't need to do that, but he did that, and he meant that. And he contacted me and asked for my son's number just to say, look, he'll reach out to him directly. And I was just blown away from that, and blown away in a way that sort of, whatever the quality of Ross's management decisions as a manager, I see him as a human being now, and not just a guy who heads up our team. Sadly, myself, I contracted and hospitalised with COVID pretty badly before Christmas. It was so nice to hear from him, phone me, another chat, all I was on the bloody breathing support.
Yeah.
It was quite funny. But it was that thing. If you look at that, that's the manager, but that disseminates throughout the club. But that comes from the top. That comes from the owners. That comes from Nigel. That comes from Kent. It comes from Danny Macklin, our CEO. It comes from what the club wants to deliver, and that means so much to the Orient fans. And that's why we don't care. There's tens of thousands of people over there. That's why we don't care. We're in the top half of the Premier League. It's about the Orient and about the family and about us being together and achieving what we achieve together, because that's such a big part of all our lives.
So obviously you've just mentioned the togetherness there and the sense of unity. How difficult has it been, especially during all these lockdowns, not to be at the stadium watching the lads? Twofold.
One, you're not sitting there hearing the idiots who don't quite know what they're talking about. That's quite nice. But then you have other idiots on Twitter who still not quite know what they're talking about. So that's fine. But yeah, I think it's not the game itself, because no disrespect, the 90 minutes is like semi-irrelevant. Yeah. It's the build-up. It's for me, I'm a saddo. I'm a football. I have been a football coach. I haven't coached for a number of years, but I like to get there nearly an hour before the game. I like to see the warm-ups. I like to see how they're preparing. That really means a lot to me. I'm not a drinker, so I don't go in the pub, but rest of the guys in the podcast, they like a drink, so they're going in the bars or a pub up the road, meeting their other mates and having that sort of get together. Then you have a quick drink at half time and probably another drink or meet up afterwards. It's the elongation of that time that is the bit I think I miss. Unfortunately, I don't live with all my children, and they're grown up and got their own properties. So I go there to football to see my sons, and it's great to see them and have a chat and catch up and face to face and a hug. But also the bit that I really, really miss, and I think a lot of fans miss, is when you do well. We all know it. We've all done it as well. You've scored a goal, you've turned to a complete stranger and hugged them, and jumped all over them if it's a 90th minute winner. I remember we went away a number of years in the FA Cup to Aston Villa. And we scored in like 87th minute. It was a Tuesday night, not the FA Cup, sorry, it was the League Cup. Romain Vincelot scooped up, header, bang, goal. And I was with my youngest then, and I looked around after we scored the goal. This man who I don't know, I do know now, has got my son in his arms, going, yes. and that's the bit where you go, you miss at home, Yes, you do the air punch or get off the sofa and go, great, we scored or we've won. It is not the same. It's not the same to hearing that. But then you flip that round, and we've been privileged to interview a number of players over the whole lockdown, even since earlier in last year. And the players are saying now, it took a bit of a while, but the players are getting quite used to no sound, no celebration. I actually think that's going to get even worse, as we know the Premier League and the FA have now asked the players not to embrace each other and celebrate goals in the way they would have done before. So I think it's going to be even more soulless over the coming weeks, because at least you would watch a player celebrate and see the adulation in their faces and joyous celebration. But now you're going to see nothing, because they're not allowed to do it. And I get it, and I understand why, so I'm not knocking it. I know it's only for a short period of time. So I honestly feel when we all get back into the stadiums, when we all get back into following our teams, whoever they may be, I want to be there, because it's going to be explosive, isn't it? It doesn't matter. I think there'll be loads of emotion, because as football fans, we're quite emotional people. Yeah. But I think that first game, win, lose or draw, will be so emotional for all fans. I know we've had a bit of it over the last couple of months, where we've had a couple of fans in, 100,000 fans here and what have you. But as we all know, they didn't last very long, did it, because of the lockdown? No. I just do feel this, when we get back into the stadium completely, back to some form of normality, I think it's going to be extremely emotional. And that's the bit we miss by watching it on the telly, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So that first game back, like you say, it's going to almost be irrelevant whether it's a win, draw or lose, because you're just that happy to be back in the stadium and watching the team that you're so used to following week in, week out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the interaction, not just with the fans around you, it's the interaction with the players, whether that's by song, your voice in your opinion, or whatever it may be. It's that interaction we all miss. You don't get it on the sofa with the TV. So it's so important. And I think, especially for lower league football, as you say, we're a League Two club, and we've always been around League One, League Two. So we never, in earlier years, many years ago, we had a time in the upper echelons of the football leagues, but we're a League One, League Two club. You know, our aspirations are being in the Championship. We nearly got there under Russell Slade, but it was all we threw it away at Wembley. But for me, I just think it's so important for the lower football is to have the fans in, because we all play a big part, you know, and that's the bit I think we're missing.
So let's move away from League One and League Two and just briefly touch upon the fact that you were in the National League. You did get relegated, but luckily you were promoted as champions back in 2019. How did that season compare to just being in League One and League Two? Was it any different?
So listen, do you know what? And I'm up to be sort of shouted at by other Orient fans. I really enjoyed our time in the National League. 2 reasons. One, you would go to majority of the games thinking we've got half a chance, yeah. But when you lost the game, it hurt. Of course it does, you know. It hurts when you lose a game. But I think we invested well. Our first year in the National League under Steve Davis was a bit wonky, you know. He didn't do a great job, although he seemingly was a really nice guy. But when Justin turned up, it just changed. The whole ethos of what we was trying to do has changed. We didn't change players. We didn't bring a load of fresh faces in. All Justin did is actually got those who got the talent to start playing. You look at our squad then, and then where we were. He came in that first year. Then the second year, our promotion year, we had a ball, you know. And the other thing is we were taking loads of people away from home. So all the clubs who we were visiting loved it, because Orient turned up with 500, 600, 700 people plus, thousands in some of the games, you know, and that helps their revenue as well, because that's the other thing I noticed in the National League is that you did have that disparity where you would have like a Wrexham who would have a really good turnout of fans, and then you'll go to somewhere like I'm just trying to think, Sutton. And we would pack out a side and then nearly sort of half a ground. And still, we could have probably filled out more of the ground. We had more fans than the home fans. So that thing for me was great, because you felt like we are Leyton Orient. We're here to have a good game, and we never thought we were the bigger club. We was always perceived as the bigger club. But that was great. It was just a nice feeling. But then you get into League Two and League One, there's better clubs than us, you know. So we just go back to being good old Leyton Orient, and we've got half a chance of winning the game like the next club. So that was the difference. I don't think I could have watched that level of football for much longer. It was pretty poor at times, and as you know, and you crooked your neck, didn't you? Because most of National League football, you look in the skies. You know, you're either getting rain in your face in the winter months or getting blinded by the sun. Guess where the ball spends most of its time. So we have seen now, since we've coming back into the Football League over the last couple of years, where the football does tend to stay on the grass, you know, or is tactically better. I think National League for me was just a little bit of push the ball up, hopefully someone scores. You've got a big forward and a big centre half, and you've got you've got a tough tackling midfielder. That's the National League. It was good fun, but I think if we'd have stayed in there much longer, I think we would have lost some support. Not people not supporting Orient, but it's just like, do you want to go every week and go and watch that quality of football? Yes, you may go home, but the whole going away and having the fun. And the other bit is, a lot of us ticked off the away day grounds that we've never ever been to. You know, and you think in those 2 years, we've been to grounds like Solihull Moors. I didn't know where Solihull Moors was, you know. I didn't know they had a football team, Solihull, but great day out, you know. You know, the first time we went there, we went up on a train and got an Uber to the ground, had a good day out. Next time when Justin took over, it was a little bit more tasty. And then we went back there in our championship year, and it was the game before our last away game. And it was like a party, you know. You were fighting to get tickets. It was that desperate. It was great. I felt like a Premier League team who had just got to the FA Cup final trying to get the tickets. You were doing everything. I got a guy who used to work for me, lived in just outside Solihull. I said, look, get me some tickets in the home end, even if I can't get my Orient tickets. So I had tickets to the home end, I had tickets to the away end. But yes, I wanted to be with my friends, the Orient fans, but I was desperate to go and see the game, so I was standing anywhere, you know. It just been a muted day out otherwise if you sat in the home end. But no, it was brilliant. The National League wasn't as bad as I expected. And I think one thing we'd noticed probably year one, when we came up, I just think we had that real desperate year. Justin's passing, Ross taking over as interim manager. Then we had Cole Fletcher come in. He was an absolute abomination of a manager. Ross stepped back in. Was he in? Was he out? And he then took it full time. And then full time, but I don't think he took his full time role until the December time or January time even. So we had nearly half a season of uncertainty of who's leading us. So that's for fans. Yeah, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes to a degree, how the players feel. But even in any job, isn't it? If your boss you don't know whether your boss is going to be your boss ongoing, you do have a little bit of not quite sure of the future. And but then that stability stepped back in, and I think that the first half year, Ross sort of in charge, and we started to see some stuff. He made some mistakes, and then guess what? He get kicked in the rear end with our friend Mr. COVID, and then it's I feel sorry for the manager because he's had. This is his second season. He's not had one season where there's been no issues, because ultimately he's had the passing of Justin, COVID, lockdown, no fans, all the things that you talk to an experienced manager and they probably can't say they've ever experienced any of this. And he's experienced that in his first 2 years of being a manager of a football club.
So you mentioned Justin a couple of times there. Obviously, he was instrumental in getting the team back into the Football League, and then sadly the news broke of his death. What impact did that have on you as a fan and the club?
As a fan, it was devastating. And I remember I was sitting at home, I was on the sofa, watching some stuff on TV. I think Orient were away. Or not away, it was still pre-season. Sorry, it wasn't even back. And saw the news come up. We knew for a sort of say a week before that Justin was being taken ill. No one quite knew what it was, and the club and the family, rightly so, were keeping that to themselves. And then the announcement broke, and the announcement broke in a couple of ways. It broke about 2 days earlier. Some fake news from the Spurs forums, but actually the news broke on that Saturday, and I was sitting at home and I said to my better half, I said, look, I want to go down the club. I've got this natural urge to want to just go down the club. I want to be with other Orient people. Yeah. And then she looked at me and she went, actually, I'll come with you, and we went to the club en route, went and bought some flowers, and this was sort of like late afternoon, early evening, and I was amazed by the time I got down there. I'm about an hour away from the club. By the time we got down there, how many people had either been down, left flowers, or people arriving, and it was such a somber mood. And funnily enough, I didn't text any of my friends or Orient family, I called them. I just went down there, and they all started appearing, and it was really emotional because no one knew what to say, no one knew how we felt, but more importantly, we just couldn't believe it. A man, if you look at Justin, was such a healthy looking man, he's very fit, he kept himself in a good shape. He's a football manager, and you think he should be all right. He should be safe as houses, shouldn't he, really? He should have his checks and what have you. And that whole thing really sort of hit the fans at that time. That's my personal experience. And then we go through the morning, and then the club go away pre-season, always invite fans to go along. And Ross spoke really well. I didn't go there, but a few of my friends did. And I just think there was a sad, it's not a black cloud because that means it was desperate. I think there was a sad cloud over Orient for such a long period of time. And that strikes right through everyone. That's from the top down to the lowest of the low. And I just think we all was in shock. The players must have been in shock, and it's been documented that they when they come back to pre-season, there was counselling support for those players because it was tough for them. You think a couple of months, or not even a couple of months, a couple of weeks before, you were playing for a guy just got you promoted to back into the Football League, was your leader, had aspirations of taking that club forward again. And then it was all taken away. And I think the thing, you can talk about sadness and talk about the impact. I think the impact that Justin's passing's had on the club has been sadly a loss, but also been so positive. Because I think that brought us together. We were brought together when we were under the ownership of the mad Italians that took us down. But then we was all pulled together as we took those 2 years in the National League and got promoted together, and the jubilation of being on the pitch after that final whistle against Braintree and the whole celebration that sort of oozed into Leyton and beyond, halfway around Essex, because most of us don't live in Leyton, for weeks to come after that still stayed there. But the memory of what that man did for our football club and what would have done, and we all say it now, and I'm not taking anything away from Ross or from Steve Davis, because they tried and they're different managers. But everyone truly believes that if Justin was at the helm of Leyton Orient going into the Football League again, we would have gone through League Two really quickly, because he just had that momentum. He had that power of persuasion. He had the understanding of the Football League. He had the respect to the players, the opposition fans. He was a legend in his own right, wasn't he? Being a Spurs legend.
Yeah.
But also, more importantly, you look at his footballing career post Spurs, and the management career. He's done a good job wherever he's gone. Yes, he had a bumpy bit at Northampton, but still highly, highly, highly respected. I truly believe, and lots of people truly believe, we would have gone through League Two and actually would have been in a really good place now. But we are in a good place now. And the best thing is legacy, and the families that enables us to have that legacy. We've got to stand in his honour, which is quite moving. I remember when that was opened, that was quite moving. Then we had our first game back in the football league. That was quite moving. And it just, even now, just talking to you about it, I never had the pleasure of interviewing or talking to Justin under it when he was our manager, but I had the pleasure of interviewing and talking to his son Charlie before Christmas, talking about the J3 Foundation and the Spurs link up. And just talking to you now, the emotion that comes back into me, that I think even my eyes are welling up just thinking about Justin, because he was such a big part of our history. And he will be a big part of our history for eternity, and that's such a nice feeling. But if I'm honest, I would rather have him in the dugout leading the team.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the current manager then, Ross Embleton. Obviously, we've mentioned before that he worked under Justin. What are your thoughts on him as the manager?
Ross is one of us, right? So that you take it whichever way you want to take that, because some fans take it, Ross is one of us, but he's still a coach, not a manager. Ross is one of us, and he's still learning. You look at what he's achieved over the 2 years, because he's still been here since Justin's passing. Interim manager after the leaving of Steve Davis. He was interim manager, then Carl Fletcher come in, interim manager after that, and then became full-time manager, and has been full-time manager for a season and a half. You know what? I'm probably a little bit biased, and I'm probably the wrong person to talk to, because everyone's got their opinion and should have their own opinion.
Yeah.
My opinion of Ross as a human being and a man, a fantastic leader. He understands the impact of what he does and how to shape up the team and the influence. So he's taken some qualities that Justin left behind and made them his own. And you can see that. But also, that's him. He's not putting on the airs and graces. He's not making anything up. That's him. He's a very, very guy and understands. He's quite honest and open. He shares his mistakes and he'll take it on the chin. But more importantly, he understands what it is to be an Orient fan. So that's really cool. We're never going to go and sit here and take a 7-year-old out of a primary school and say, why aren't you writing your name clearly, properly, using the right pronunciation at 7? They've got to learn. They've got to learn that piece. And it's the same as a manager. And the thing is, though, there's not a lot of opportunities now where a manager gets that chance, And I think because the owners believe in what he's doing, because our director of football, Martin Ling, believes in that as well, it's given that opportunity. But now we're starting to see the Ross Embleton team. We've got a Ross Embleton side. He likes to play quick football, and we win games with quick football. And the days that we don't play that level of intensity, we don't win. We tend to either draw or we get beat. But again, we've got to remember he's a young man. He's not even done 2 full years in management. He's not been a professional player. He's not been in a changing room for half of his life. He's been a coach in the junior in the junior world, he's never played a game of football professionally. Even though his Wikipedia says he played for Bedford, he never played for Bedford. He never even tried. He never anywhere near there. He had more chance of becoming a estate agent than a professional football manager. So when we interviewed him back in the beginning of 2019, the early lockdown, he told us his full story. He shared his sadness of just in passing, but the bit that he shared is that he got the phone call after he from Martin Ling to say we've taken over the club, we've got in there, and want you to come in as a coach. He was just received a job offer to become an estate agent for a local estate agency. So he was coming out of football, and he was actually going in to do another career, and he took on the job at Orient, and the rest we know and we see in front of us now. So for me, is he going to get us up the football leagues in the same speed or the same way as someone who's done it, got the T-shirt like a Justin or like a whoever, in the football, like Derek Adams at Morecambe, who we're playing soon. Yeah. Those things, no, we don't have that. But what we do have, we've got someone who bloody cares, really cares for the club, cares for the fans, open and honest, and I think he's given it his all. He's not just a part-time manager, i.e. when he walks out of the club in the afternoon, that's it. He lives and breathes it. He lives and breathes it like we do as fans, and that, for me, is really good. I want to see how we get on the second half of the season. We've just made a new signing in recent days. We've got Dan Kempin from ex-West Ham, under-23s player, was out on loan at Blackpool. We got him in on a 2.5-year deal. He's a massive talent. We see across Twitter, West Ham fans are screaming, going, and West Ham are giving their talent away. We've got young lad Tunji, who's playing from West Ham on loan this season, phenomenal. But then Ross has got that experience of working with younger talent from his coaching days before becoming assistant manager at the club. So he gets that. He gets under the skin of that, And if you look across our team, Lee Angel used to play for him at Spurs in their community system where Ross used to coach him. Then you've got Lawrence Figueroa, our goalkeeper, who's probably one of the best goalkeepers in League Two and really should be playing a lot higher. Play for Ross and work with Ross when he was firstly on loan from Liverpool at Swindon, but secondly, when Ross was at Swindon as a coach. So, and James Brophy, another player that played for Ross or part of the setup at Swindon. So you start to see the people that Ross gets, people around him that he trusts and respects. But more importantly, he gets the players in. And the thing Martin Ling helps him with is the right player with the right attitude who can fit not just the system, but fit the club, who get the club, who understand the club, and understand the passion of the fans. Although we're not thousands of us, but understands what it means to be an Orient fan. And that thing, to me, will make Ross Embleton stand up above other managers that could have come in.
So we've discussed what it's like to be a fan and we've discussed the current season. Now it's time to test your knowledge. We're going to do our fan quiz, which is 5 questions about Leyton Orient and 5 questions about football in the 92 in general. How do you think you're going to do on this one?
Right, absolutely atrocious. So 2 things or 3 things I don't do. One is do quizzes because I've got a mental knowledge in my head of probably 2 minutes ago walking up the stairs. So that's it. I remember what I had for breakfast. I remember what I watched on TV last night, but don't get me talking about what happened on Thursday. So I'm atrocious. I am a fan. I've been a fan, as you said, from probably my mid-teens. But I'm used to sort of knowing players, and so my boys will tell you this. I've had players over the years, and I had different names for them. I had a player called Reggie, and it's Nicky Hunt. He used to play for Bolton. I called him Reggie. That was his name, and even. And I actually literally wrote that down before coming on this. I knew something may come up, so I thought I better write his real name down. So I couldn't remember that Nicky. I never called him Nicky Hunt. I called him Reggie, and I'm quite vocal. So when I'm quite a big mouth, so sometimes I actually don't just say it to my sons or in passing. I say it standing up, shouting at them, and you could see people going, "What the hell is he on about?" And I just hope people see I'm a bit of a madman and just sort of leave me to my own devices. So quizzes, I'm useless, right? So I'm going to guarantee you it'll be 0 out of 5. But more importantly, it's a taking part, isn't it? Let's go back to the Orient ethos. It's not about winning; it's about taking part.
I reckon you might do all right, but we'll see. So, Question 1: before signing for Leyton Orient, Josh Coulson spent 10 years at which other League Two side?
Sadly, Cambridge.
Yes. Manchester United are top of the Premier League after a win against Burnley last week, but in what year were they last top of the Premier League?
2019.
No, it was 2017.
Bloody hell. I didn't realise I was that bad. Yeah,
In the year that Leyton Orient were promoted back to League Two as National League champions, who finished second place?
So their second place, Solihull Moors were second, didn't they? But Salford got promoted with us.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you that one because it was Solihull, yes. Which former England manager is technical director at Derby County?
What's his name? The Brolly. The Wally with the Brolly.
I'm going to give you that, Steve McLaren, yeah.
Yeah.
What year were Leyton Orient founded?
1881.
Well done. In 2015, Dele Alli signed for Tottenham from which EFL club?
Milton Keynes Dons.
Yes. What is James Brophy's shirt number?
27.
16.
What? Is it?
Yeah.
You know what? I was thinking of James that's date. I'm sorry, mate. Sorry, yeah, 16. Yeah, what an idiot. Yeah, I knew that one as well.
Which League Two team beat Premier League Leeds United in the FA Cup recently?
Crawley Town, the Wright brothers, wasn't it? You know, they all flew there, I think. So yeah, Mark and Josh Wright, ex-player Leyton Orient.
Yes. Ross Embleton had 3 stints as an interim head coach before signing a 1-year rolling contract in 2020. What year was Ross's first spell as interim head coach?
Let's work this out. So we're in 2021, 2018.
It was 2017.
Is it? You know what? Like Man United. You know what? That year must be erased from my memory.
Must be gone, yeah.
Yeah, Jesus. He needs to move on. We need to get him sacked. We need to get a decent manager in now. Sorry, Ross, if you're listening. Sorry.
And the final question: who scored the penalty that ended Sheffield United's 18-game run without a win in the Premier League?
I haven't got a Scooby. But who did score their goal?
It was Billy Sharp.
Ah, yes. Come on.
How do you think he did?
I don't know, because I keep telling you this. I can't remember what I said.
You can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago.
I haven't got a clue. What was the first question? No, that's even worse. No, I think I did better than I expected I would do.
You got 7 out of 10, so that's not bad at all, really.
Do you know what? My head teacher at my primary school, if I had an exam, senior school, I had an exam response of 70 out of 100, that'd have been really good. So I'm proud of that. And you know what? Are you going to send certificate out or something like that so I can put it on my office wall? No?
Do you want me to? I can do.
No, mate. Listen. Just don't promote it.
Julian got 7 out of 10. Well done.
Yeah, that's it. Could try harder.
So currently, Leyton Orient 9th in League Two, just outside the playoffs. How's the season going from your perspective? Is this where you want to be?
We have played some phenomenal football, and we've played some of the most atrocious football over the years, and that's a lot of different reasons that none of us can really probably pick out and understand. But what I wanted to say there is that a lot of us pre-season said mid-table, because of all the bits that happened back in the last year, the circumstances we found ourselves in. But the aspiration is always going to be for any fan is to get into the playoffs, get into the top 3, get promoted. Of course it is. If you don't, why do you support football? Go and do something else. So those things there, we want to do well. We've been in the playoffs. We've come out. Hopefully we could go back in there over the next couple of weeks. But we're good enough. If you look at that league, anyone can beat anyone. And I refer that back to one of the guys on the podcast, Brendan Pritchett. He says it every week. Anyone can beat anyone. And we have done. We've gone from beating Salford, our strangely rivals, Newport, top of the league at the time, and then we'll go to a lower league team. And no disrespect to those lower league teams. And we get beat and we sit there and going, but a week ago, we just done that. And why are we doing that? And that's what football is about. But this year in League Two, it's the Carlisle at the top of the league at the moment. I can't guarantee you, but I wouldn't be very surprised. Someone else who's probably in 10th, 11th, top of the league by when we close in May, because it's such that variance in League Two. So it's good fun to watch. I think the thing that fans have to remember, one, don't get too hung up on it. It's a game of football. It's no lives are dependent on this game of football. Yes, we want to win. Secondly, is that what will be as per the song. And if we end up in the playoffs at the end of the season, fantastic. If not, we go again next year. But one thing we still will have is our football club, and we'll have the unity that we've struck up over the last few years.
Absolutely. Just on that point about any team can beat any team, you're absolutely right. Like, earlier on in the season, Leyton Orient played my team, Grimsby, and we beat you 3-2, but it's clear that Leyton Orient are by far a better team than we are currently. And for us to win 3-2 was a bit like, well, how the hell did that happen? So you're right, any team can beat any team, and it's definitely going to be interesting come the end of the season to see the table now and to see the table at the end of the season to see how much it's changed.
You mentioned that, and I didn't realise you sort of the Grimsby connection. So for us as Orient fans, when the beginning of the season, before Ross was made permanent, my person I wanted in was Ollie. I wanted Ollie as our manager. The reason why, and again, it's probably another debate for another day, is that at that time, we were collective, including fans, including management, including the whole club, Leyton Orient. We were on our knees. We were mourning. We were mourning a loss of someone very dear to us, someone most of us never met, and that's the strangest thing, isn't it? But the one thing I thought with Ollie could bring to us is that human element, a bit of a laugh, but the guy knew he knew his way around lower league. Well, you probably have a different opinion to that. But
absolutely.
At that time, at that time, we needed someone who could sort of bring us sort of a positive light on Orient. Flip that round, come to where we are now. I'm really pleased that Ross was appointed, because I think maybe that would have been ill-judged because of what we've seen with your club, and he's had a bit of a history, but he is a fun guy, so that would have been great. But reality is, would the football have turned out the same way? Blah blah blah. You'll be bitter though, aren't you? Because
absolutely,
yeah. So you're going to see it from a different way. But I'll guarantee you, half your fans, when he was appointed, were jumping off the sofa going, "Get in there! We've got a proper manager." So
I was one of those fans when he was appointed. It was just over a year ago that he was appointed, and it came out of the blue, and we were like, Ian Holloway, how have we managed to do that? And then there was this air of excitement around the club for ages, and then obviously recently things haven't been going so well for us. He left the club because there's all this talk of takeover and stuff like that, but now we've got one of our old managers back, Paul Hurst, and we're kind of seeing the positive light again, so maybe it's a good thing that Ian Holloway left after all. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from with wanting to get him in the first place, but you are in a much better place with Ross Embleton now, aren't you? So the final two questions then are just about your favourite players. Is there any players that are currently playing for Leyton Orient that you're really enjoying, or is there any that from the past that you would consider your favourites?
I've never been a lover player, because I think, like anything in life, you get attached to something and it goes, it breaks your heart, doesn't it? Or you either keep saying, I wish blah blah was here because I used to do that. So I'm going to look back over a number of years, and for my early days of supporting Orient, there was a player called Kenny Achimpong, who played for Fulham, I think, as well, and a few other clubs, I think Oxford. He was just a tricky winger, He's a great midfielder, comical, great on the ball, all the stuff that you want, and especially in probably a team that was probably not as technical as some of the teams, even our team today. We've got some technical players in there. Same sort of a little bit later on, you had Ricky Otto, who had a stint in prison, joined the Orient and been playing for Southend, and he went on to play for Birmingham and is now a pastor, I think, in Birmingham. He was a fantastic player to watch. Had one foot only, don't put anything on his right foot, but he had 1 foot, great player to watch. And then I think you could bounce around with players that probably other supporters may not have loved. There was a striker called Mark Cooper. Weren't bad, but he was just a character. I remember a game years ago at Underhill at Barnet, and it was a Tuesday night. I think it was a Tuesday night. It was absolutely hammer it down. It's cold, and they were doing all their warm-ups. And he came over to talk to where we were undercover, and then he was talking to that, and then he was called back over to the warm-ups. And then he looked over, he jumped over the wall and sat on the floor so they couldn't see him. So he stayed out the warm-ups in the dry, then jumped back over the wall and went into the changing rooms and got the change or then prepared for the game. And sort of characters like that you don't get now for obvious reasons, because football is fairly competitive, but more importantly, there's a lot of money riding on football nowadays. Yeah. So he was a player I remember. Kevin Nugent, who was our assistant coach under Russell Slade, who played for us. I liked him as a player. When I was younger, I'd name a bloody cat under his name. They called him Nuge, so that was a bit of a weird one. But I think if we get back to the latter years, you look at some of the players we've had at Orient, and even under the mad Italian time, you had some quality in there, but they just didn't play as a team. and you think under better leadership they would have been really good. But if you move on to where we are now, I think we only can be really honest about those players that really, I feel, were just bought into it. And the one player which I wanted to mention today is Joby McAnuff. The man is a machine, of his age. Yeah, his technical ability, his enthusiasm, his leadership qualities. Yes, we see him on TV, in BT and BBC and Quest and that. But the man is an absolute legend. He was with us when we was having it under the Mad Italian, and unfortunately, I think he did get sort of handed out, with a number of other players, by the way. But the other side of it is he's come back. And he's led us to the glory land. We're back in the Football League, and his history will be getting the accolades he did early in his career in West Ham, Watford, and then Reading is his big part most people know him from. Yeah. But no less than what he's going to be remembered for at Leyton Orient. On players and players that are very skillful, you like to watch them, and they stand out. In our current lineup, we've probably got James Brophy, who was mentioned, who plays at number 16, just to remind you of that. We have Dan Happy, centre half. He won't be as probably next year because a phenomenal centre half. He'll go upwards and onwards, and wish him all the best for that. We have a great goalkeeper in Lawrence Figueroa, and then you move across that team. You've got Danny Johnson, DJ, who's scoring the goals. For me, I love Danny Johnson because he's a striker. That's what he's paid to do. A bus driver's paid to drive his bus. What we're going to do, we're going to jump and scream about someone who puts a bus at 15 stops on their route. No, we don't. So Danny Johnson's a good forward, knows where the net is. But then you look around, with the one player I think in that forward line for me has been really, really, really remarkable and starting to come into his own now is Connor Wilkinson, a player that's had the opportunity to play a lot higher. And I think in an interview with one of our other radio show that's on in East London and Essex that does a broadcast, and they interviewed him, and the thing that he said is that he's in love with Orient. He feels that he's at home, and I think that goes back to any player. If they feel that they're at home, they're respected, they do better. We had a guy a number of years back called Cole Brithristle who we interviewed, and he said exactly the same thing. When he came to Orient, he felt that he was loved by the fans, and guess what? He scored bundles of goals. Danny Johnson, has come to us, the last transfer window, the January transfer window, but he hadn't played up in Scotland for many games, and prior to that, he'd been bouncing around non-league, but he's come here and we respect him, we're behind him, and he's loved, and he's banging goals. And sadly, as you know, in local league football, you either have to pay these players a lot more money to stay, or they're going to get snapped up and move on. And I just hope with Connor, with Danny, and with some of the other players, they feel respected, loved, and appreciated at Orient. They'd rather spend another couple of years here than go off and somewhere and sit on the bench. And that's what I fear for any player leaving lower league, because they don't always go into the first team and play week in, week out, So there's definitely a balance here. But going back to the modern day footballer, probably the player in recent years that's been outstanding, Joby McAnuff.
Fair enough. Well, now I feel like I know a little bit more about Leyton Orient, so thank you very much for that, Julian. Just before we go, tell us a little bit about your own podcast.
Yeah, so so our background is we was invited as a group of fans to go on a radio show called Love Sport. So we was doing a fan show once a week on there, and there's a group of 4 of us who was really enjoying it. The podcast itself was formed from that. We were under a different skies whilst we was on the other station, but I think now we're rocking and rolling. But our podcast is slightly different to the other shows that circle Leyton Orient. Is that yes, we're in association with a local radio station, so we use their facility when we can get in there. Otherwise, currently we've been doing it on Zoom. But the bit for us is about the fans and our unique things, and the others are copying this, by the way, is the interviews. What we like to do is go and interview someone, whether they're a fan, whether they're a player, ex-player, management, whatever it may be, family members of ex-players or players that passed away, whatever our plans are for what's been and what's coming. That's been our uniqueness, and we're trying to do it from the other side, not saying how did you feel when you scored that goal. That's irrelevant because everyone knows that because they've been on other shows or they've had interviews post-match and explained that. Bit we like to get under the bonnet of is saying, how do you feel? What's important to you? The bits that you don't get a chance to hear from a player or ex-player during an interview. So that's the bit we go at. But there's a group of 5 of us. One of us in and out. So Rob, who now is in his own right a senior leader. He's a chairman of Haverfordwest Football Club down in the Welsh Premier League. I'm a director of that club as well. Although unfortunately, due to the pandemic, every time I used to want to go down there, we couldn't cross the border. So hopefully, in a couple of months to come, I'll get and go and see a game. It'd be great. We have Darren Reisman on the podcast, who's a absolute loyal, mad Orient fan, home and away. Runs his own business, so he's got that little bit of flexibility. But also, he I don't know if you've ever just Google it. He's the man that's got the whole National League winning season on his arm. So he's a big tattoo fan. So he's got Justin, Ross, the owners. So if you can ever do it, go and have a look at it, because it's very impressive. Or you can follow him on Instagram as well, where he's got us posted. And then we have Dale Halls, who's just like myself, an avid fan. I got to know Dale through my better half used to work with his dad. His dad was her boss at a Royal Bank of Scotland, and got to know, interviewed him on the other station. And then he just come a part of our thing. He's got great input, great knowledge of football. And the last one is the one I must admit, was the one I never thought would fit into the work into what we do. But Brendan Pitcher, we call him the knowledge. If there's anything you want, get him on your quiz, man. You'll know all the answers. And the stuff he does know is like really odd. But if you look at that collective, that's not one or two of us, or it's just not people popping. That is the bulk of what we do. And then we fill that with other fans, interviews. We do a lot. Always talk about the opposition view. We understand about what our opposition are doing, planning for the next game. So it's we call it rightly or wrongly, it's the Orient show by the fans for the fans. Everyone can take part, and we've opened that mantra, and we've been really blessed to have a real good season so far, and hopefully that will continue for many, many, many years to go.
Well, thank you very much, Julian, for agreeing to come on to the 92 podcast to tell us about Leyton Orient. I do feel like I've learnt a lot more. Best of luck for the rest of the season.
Listen, and now you're a Grimsby fan, so we'll see you hopefully at some point next season, because we won't get promoted, nor will you. And then we'll see you next year. If we do, we get promoted together, and we'll see each other in League One. So make sure if we can, then you get down to the Orient when Grimsby are in town. Please reach out to me, and I'll meet you up and buy you a bit of pie and mash and a bit of liquor down the road. There you go.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Julian for talking to us, and of course, thank you for listening. If you'd like to help me on our quest to speak to at least one fan from each of the clubs in the 92 and talk all about your club, you can find us on Twitter at the 92 podcast, or email the 92podcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the 92 podcast. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it would really help us if you left us a rating and a review. Next time I'll be ticking off another club in the 92. See you then.